Do you need one of us to run this meeting?
Yeah. I'll close the door, but I'll keep an eye on the door.
Okay. Would you like to do it? Because I think I did it last time.
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
All right. Well, we'll go ahead and get this meeting started. For those who are online, welcome to the March meeting of the Disability Advisory Commission for Arlington County. My name is Brian Atkins. Go by he, him pronouns, white male with brown hair.
Doris.
And we have another commissioner on the way. We'll go over to Karen.
Hello, everyone. I'm Karen Odon. I'm also a commissioner. I am a Caucasian woman with dark hair. I use pronouns she and her. And thank you so much for coming tonight.
Okay. Oh.
There's Doris.
Yeah, very good. Straight ahead. You can sit right here. There's a chair right here. Come this way. Come to your right. Your right.
Sure.
No, it's yours. You can sit right here. It's yours.
Who's here?
You. Nobody's sitting here.
Is this Courtney?
It's me. Yeah, it's Courtney. Sorry, it's me, Courtney. Sorry. Hi, Doris.
Hey.
It's Karen.
So are we using the new system or the old system?
We're using the new system today. I have it right here for you, right here in front of you.
Who else is here?
Karen,
How are you?
I'm doing well.
Bryant is here as well.
We only need 3. Is that what you said in your? You didn't want your presenters to sit here?
The presenters are joining us virtually.
Huh?
Presenters aren't virtual. They're
They're
on.
both.
We have public comment by Bonnie. So Bonnie should be, is she first or who's going? So public comment is Bonnie, and then we have our housing presentation.
So did anybody go see the cherry blossoms?
Not yet.
And plan on.
Me neither,
I hope to.
but I love them. I've loved them since I was a child.
They're beautiful. I actually had a cherry tree on my property, between my property and my neighbors. We had to cut it down because it was diseased. So it was just morning last week when they were cutting it down. I had taken pictures of it in bloom 2 years ago, but it was sad, but it was diseased.
Courtney? You hear?
I'm here,
Oh.
right next to you.
Should I be able to hear through my T coils?
Yes.
It,
You're not.
I didn't hear words.
Uh-oh. Let me see.
We don't have mics at the table, right?
Right. Mics are up in this. You hear? How about now? Are you able to hear anything now?
Or nobody's talking
Uh,
Can you hear me?
now. Like barely.
You want us to test on here too? We can test.
Yeah, are you talking?
Virtual?
Huh?
We're virtual. Can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Hi, Doris. It's Bonnie O'Leary. Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
but somebody in the room,
Doris, I'm closer. Is
see,
that-
that's who I can't hear, people in the room.
Oh dear, because I'm very close.
This happened, by the way, recently at a housing commission. This very thing. Anyway, I was somewhere where this very thing happened. Oh, I know where it was. It was in my office
Oh, even worse.
at Crystal City. They just put in a new one of these that's looped up here. Doesn't have the same kind of receiver, but and at first it was working all right, but the last meeting we had, I couldn't hear people.
You like to get started?
Yeah, go ahead and get started.
Where is the volume? This middle thing?
yes, that's the volume.
Say what you had for lunch or something.
Black beans and rice.
Yeah.
Don't be self-conscious.
Is
Say
that any
something
better?
more.
Is that any better?
Doesn't seem to be increasing the.
Can you hear me? I'm right next to you. Can you hear me?
You're right next to me.
Yeah.
You sound just like, well, wait a minute.
I wonder if
Wait a
it's because of the, I think the ventilation is really, yeah, I'm having a hard time with myself hearing.
Talk some more.
I'm having a hard time with myself because the vents seem like they're a little bit
A
more
little bit.
louder than normal. So maybe the vents.
So guys at the table, talk a little bit more.
Okay,
Can you hear me now?
so we were talking about the cherry blossoms, hoping to go see them.
Yeah, I think it's working a little bit better, and it may be my aids because I changed the mode on the aids.
Okay,
It's working better.
excellent,
Okay, good.
good.
So are we
I think we're
waiting
okay,
for still to see who comes?
or are we going to start with public comment?
Yeah, we'll go ahead and get started. Do we have any public comment?
Yes, actually, you
That's-
do. And it
Pardon?
won't take long. It won't take long. That's the good news. Thank you for letting me have this opportunity. I'm Bonnie O'Leary. I'm the outreach manager for the Northern Virginia Resource Center for Deaf and Hard of Hearing Persons. And I just wanted to come this evening to express our enormous appreciation for your support and proposing that we continue our funding for the next grant cycle. That means a lot to us. Before I checked the proposed budget, we had been asked to do some screenings and a presentation and a training in August. One is in July and one is August. And I had to tell folks, we don't know yet whether we're going to be continuing. So when I checked the proposed budget, I was so excited. And not only are we continuing, but y'all proposed a 12% increase for us, which was even better news. So I was able to get back to folks and tell them that we can go ahead with the planning that we were going to start after the 1st of July. And as just a warm and fuzzy, I did a training for Jennifer Collins for her senior center staff at the Arlington Community Center on March the 1st. And after I was finished, I did say that I had checked the budget and we have been proposed for continued funding, and everybody burst into applause. There are about 25 people there. So we know we have a lot of support in the county, and historically, when we have been proposed for funding, it has gone through. So we got our fingers crossed that that will be the case again this year. But on behalf of all of us at NVRC, we just wanted to say thank you very much for your continued support.
You're welcome.
So, one of the things that I wanted to say to you, this is Doris, so, and I did want to say that, and in front of my colleagues on the commission, that NVRC has, number one, done such a terrific job in advocacy for people who are deaf and hard of hearing and people who are deafblind. On the issue of failures in ADA compliance by healthcare settings and facilities. And I think it would be, a wonderful continuation of that here in Arlington to start looking at their failure to continued failure to provide for even the simplest thing. And I've had some personal experience with a member of my family going into a nursing home, and it made me think to myself that if I was in there, the couple of places that I've seen, if I was in there or even in the hospital, that if they don't make sure that I can access my hearing aids, if they don't make sure that I get the paperwork in an alternative format, if I don't have my hearing aids and possibly an assisted listening system to participate in care planning meetings, that I would not have my rights. It also is very interesting to me that in hospitals and in nursing homes where they have televisions, I can't say what they've got going on passion-wise, but I can say they keep the volume down so low that somebody with, and my hearing loss is at the moderate to severe range, and I wouldn't be able to have even that diversion there, let alone anything else. So number one, the settlement agreement that you worked with the U.S. Attorney's Office
Right.
to and get, and the implementation that hopefully is happening now.
I
It-
believe so.
well, And I want to make sure the commissioners here know that that's something that you all have been doing, and it's one.
Thank you, Doris. And thank you for coming to Cheryl's Memorial. It was good to see you there.
Oh. Cheryl Hettner was the founder of, just for people who don't know, the founder of the first, excuse me, not the founder. She was not, she wasn't, there are others who founded NVRC, but she came from Winchester to take over as the first executive director and was in that position. What, tell me, make sure I get the dates right, 1989 to 1950 to 2015. And she recently passed away. She was a great and wonderful, and she was my friend, Bonnie's colleague and friend, and don't miss her.
She always used to talk about you, Doris, in the highest of, with the highest regard. She really thought the world of you. She thought you were one of the most phenomenal advocates that she ever knew.
Thank you for saying that.
That's true. She did.
As very young women and starting a statewide coalition of people with disabilities. And she was one of the most honest, brave people I've ever seen. And she was a national leader in the deaf and hard of hearing community and working for all people with all disabilities. But what I wanted to say was that what I didn't say during the memorial was that just before she stepped down from the position, when she knew she was starting to get ill, she was planning to come to the ADA anniversary, 25th anniversary bus that came to ECNV here in Courthouse, and we hosted a reception and a program. And that day, she was unable to come. But
Right.
nonetheless, she didn't have to do this. She, of course, and others had requested sign language interpretation, and we of course had it. And she afterwards sent ECNB a $400 check to contribute to our cost for that, and therefore was a sponsor of that event in NVRC. But I mean, it just touched my heart so much. She did that.
Yeah, she was good that way, and I'm glad she did. Everything she did from her heart. That's for sure. Thank you, Doris, for mentioning that.
So thank you, Madam Chair, for allowing me to have the dialogue with Bonnie, and I appreciate everything.
I know I need to sign off and let you all get on with your meeting. I've taken up too much time, but I do want to thank you all again. Okay, I'm going to leave now and let you get on with it.
Thank you, Bonnie.
All right, you're welcome. Bye-bye.
And then our second speaker had a hard stop at 7:30, but did provide us some information in the chat. That Courtney, I'm assuming you'll send to us after.
Yeah, they can just send me the sessions that you guys can attend, some information sessions. And then you guys already have the PowerPoints as well that you can review, and they also provided the link to the information as well.
And which one is this for?
This is the housing grant study that I provided. Yep.
Okay.
So there's a link, and then I can go ahead and also provide information.
So I'm not You can take that.
Did you guys- Nicole and Caitlin, did you want to add
Yeah,
anything to
if
that?
that's better.
And you guys-
Yeah,
that.
I mean, we can go, I think a little bit till 8, or would you prefer?
Need to move it. There we go.
I have Clinton's at 7:35.
Oh, you have the next item on the agenda you have to get to?
Yeah, so you guys want to take like 10 minutes, I guess, just or
Sure.
Ms.
And,
Clinton?
Nicole, I'll share the slides if that works.
Okay. All right, we can do that. And
Then
then
we'll go through.
Caitlin, I did share with Courtney that we also are having community engagement sessions. So there's other opportunities that if anybody wants more information or jump in Q&A, there's some sessions held in April. But we can, within 10 minutes, we can breeze right through this. First of all, good evening. My name is Nicole Dula. I'm the Housing Assistance Bureau Director within the Department of Human Services, Economic Independence Division. I'm joined by my colleagues, Caitlin, if you wanted to introduce yourself, and Amy Yorsick.
Sure. I'm Caitlin Hutchison, she, her pronouns, Caucasian woman with brown hair. I know I've met some of you and I'm on camera as well. I am Assistant Director for the Department of Human Services, and I assisted the Housing Assistance Bureau with this housing grant study.
Hi, excuse me. My name's Amy Yorsick, and I actually supervise the housing grant program.
Okay, awesome. We'll jump right into it. So at the direction of the county board, the Department of Human Services conducted a holistic housing grant study to analyze the current program, the legislative origins, as well as any potential gaps in affordable housing needs. This is the first time since the program's inception that we've studied the program. And so efforts under this evaluation will help determine what actions the county board, county manager could take moving forward, and any proposed changes that we may adopt in the future. Just a little bit of background before we go into the recommendations. The housing grant program is 100% locally funded. The housing grant program is currently, it provides ongoing rental assistance for targeted subpopulations, and those are those residents that are age 65 years of age or older, residents that have a disability, either totally and permanently disabled, or are actively engaged with our county-operated behavioral health programs, or your working family with minor children that meet work requirements. The Department of Human Services has operated the program since 1991. Prior to that, the program was operated through the Commissioner of Revenue's office. And just for the FY25 proposed budget that the county manager has released, we're anticipating that this program will run approximately $15.1 million in the coming budget year. Next slide. And a copy of these slides have been sent, but this is just to give you sort of a 5-year snapshot of what that budget picture looks like. In the blue bar is our ongoing funding. Orange is the one-time appropriations each year. As I mentioned, we're up to 15.1, which we're anticipating will be funded for FY25. Through the years, I mean, the program is really doing well in terms of not only outpacing the expenditure, our budget expenditures for ongoing funding, but also participation within the program. So the program has experienced a 44% growth between the time periods shown on this slide from 2019 to 2023. We continue to take in applications on a day-to-day, daily basis through staff approving applications within 60 days. So there's still demand for the program. As I mentioned, it's an open, ongoing benefit that we offer Arlingtonians. Next slide. This slide here gives a breakdown of the concentration of the eligible participants, starting from the bottom up. Residents that are 65 years and older on average represent 31% of all participants in the program. In the middle line, the middle bar is the color orange. On average, this represents all of our disabled participants. This is about 42%. And then the top gray bar half is our working family representation. And working families comprise of 26% of our entire population of who we serve. Okay. Slide. Within the report, there is a literature review where we tried to sprout the US for other comparable programs to see what we could learn. I'm not going to get into some of those programs that we've identified in other areas such as Portland, Oregon, and through the Commonwealth, but in the report, which is available online, you can read more about other programs that are operating similar to housing grants across the nation. Slide. Also within the report, there is a breakdown of other rental assistance subsidies that are currently being administered here in Arlington County. Within my bureau, the Housing Assistance Bureau, we offer a number of programs, including Housing Choice Voucher, which is 100% federally funded. This is also ongoing rental assistance for low income, extremely low income households. We also operate the Permanent Supportive Housing Program, which is locally funded, a little bit of federal funding, but primarily we're leaning towards more state funding resources for this program. This program is ongoing rental assistance specifically for individual and families with disabilities, such as serious mental health or substance use disorder, including youth aging out of foster care. The Housing Assistance Bureau also operates as the lead agency for Arlington County's continuum of care, where we work with a number of safety net providers that also assist our residents that are homeless. And through those safety net providers, we apply on their behalf for additional federal and state funding for temporary rental assistance, effectively called rapid rehousing. Which is a bridge that we offer homeless residents as we suit them for mainstream resources or mainstream rental subsidies that are ongoing. And through our partners, they also operate permanent supportive housing, which is geared primarily to households with disabilities and or meet the definition for chronic homelessness. Okay, next slide. So I mentioned our full report is on our website. The recommendations related to this program related to the study of this program were also called out in our Affordable Housing Master Plan implementation framework. So our charge there was to develop a proposal for expanding eligibility and market rate rents, as well as identify the program's effectiveness in meeting the needs of extremely low income households. And I will turn it over to Caitlin to discuss the study.
And I know we don't have a lot of time left, so I'll go through these slides quickly. We just wanted to provide an overview of the engagement that we conducted for the housing grant study that Nicole mentioned. In June and through August of 2022, we did hold 9 focus groups that engaged with 46 individuals, and those individuals represented current and past housing grants participants, past applicants, and various stakeholders, including representatives from different commissions, such as the Disability Advisory Commission. We followed up those focus groups with a telephone survey, shortly after in August and September of 2022, and we did hear from just over 100 individuals, and those really focused on current and past participants and past applicants. We then talked with staff from the Community Planning and Housing Development Department, as well as different parts of DHS. In January of 2023, and we heard from just over 50 staff. And all of these interviews and the data gleaned from these different engagement mechanisms really informed our recommendations, which we're now sharing with the community and commissions, the county board, and the county manager. And we'll be holding, as Nicole mentioned, 2 community meetings in early April, which we'll share the links with Courtney so she can share those with you. They will be virtual. There will be 1 Spanish session and 1 English. I'm so sorry, my allergies are acting up. We did include 17 recommendations in the report that span 4 categories: eligibility criteria, staffing, program requirements, and program operations. The FY25 proposed budget currently includes just over $100,000 to fund a pilot that will serve up to 12 transition-aged youth and youth aging out of foster care under the Housing Grants Program for up to 3 years. We also have funds in the proposed budget for 2 additional housing specialist FTEs, and we plan to replace the current work hour requirement with a minimum earned income. And so those 3 items were pulled out of the recommendations for possible implementation if approved by the county board. So as I mentioned, in the eligibility criteria category, we had 4 proposals or recommendations. One pertaining to the transition-aged youth and youth aging out of foster care, which are generally youth age 18 to 25. And we would serve up to 12 individuals under this category on a pilot basis for up to 36 months as they sort of transition to adulthood. Secondly, we touched upon expanding eligibility criteria to provide rental assistance to households with members who are undocumented. It has been the program's policy that households that are partially comprised of individuals without legal presence have received a prorated subsidy. But we made the recommendation that those households receiving the prorated subsidy receive a full subsidy, and also that the county consider adding up to 50 additional households under the category of households with members who are undocumented per year. Also under eligibility criteria, we propose to expand criteria to provide rental assistance to households who are under age 65 and have a serious mental illness or chronic substance use disorder diagnosis, even if they're not receiving services from the Arlington County Community Services Board. Currently, they do have to be connected to a CSB program of some sort, but there are some individuals that may qualify for the housing grant who either receive services elsewhere or choose not to receive services currently. And so this recommendation recommends that they be able to access the housing grants program if that is the case. Under staffing, in addition to the new staff positions that are included in the proposed budget, there were recommendations related to reclassifying existing housing grants eligibility benefit specialist positions and benefit supervisor positions, given changes in program scope and complexity in recent years. So that would better align their classification to their job duties. There was also a recommendation to create a new senior level position that would help with things like training and quality assurance and internal reviews and special projects. There was also a recommendation to create a new housing grants navigator classification that would help applicants and participants with locating, securing, and retaining affordable housing and applying and renewing for their benefits. Under the program requirements category, there was a recommendation to replace the current work hour requirements for working families with minor children with a minimum earned income that's tied to minimum wage and total number of working parents or guardians in the household. There was also a recommendation to align the maximum allowable rents with Arlington County's current rent limits for committed affordable units that are affordable at 60% of area median income. This is something that's done each year, but the actual limits change prior to the annual update. So the housing grants maximum allowable rents lag about a year behind the change each year. So this would bring it up to speed so that it aligns in real time. There was a recommendation to offer inspections for non-committed affordable units on an as-needed by request basis. CPHD, the county's Department of Community Planning, Housing and Development, inspects at least 20% of all CAFs each year. But there are some housing grants units that are not CAFs, so this would allow for them to receive inspections when needed. There was also a recommendation to decrease client rent responsibility from 40% of household income to 35% of household income, which mirrors many of our other housing assistance programs and aligns with the generally accepted housing affordability standard. getting close to the end of the program requirements recommendations, there was a recommendation to increase flexibility for working adults with dependents with disabilities so that the household's earned income would only have to make up the difference between whatever the applicable minimum earned income is and any SSI or SSDI that the household receives. And this would mean that the working adults would be able to work fewer hours and provide them with additional time to provide care to their dependents' needs, for their dependents' needs, without having to worry about how they might meet minimum income requirements. There was a recommendation to raise the housing grants income limit to align with 50% of area median income limits. Currently, the income limit is set at 85% of 50% of AMI, so this would just raise it slightly. There was a recommendation to exclude the earned income of adult children living in the household in income calculations if they're a full-time student in either a school or vocational training program until the income exceeds $20,000 per year. And so that would allow them to use their earned income to pay for education expenses. There was also a recommendation to provide a standard utility deduction of $100 per month to all housing grants households to help pay for household paid utilities. And then moving to the program operations recommendations, there were two. The first was to perform electronic record enhancements to create web-based application and recertification forms so that households could utilize an online portal to do applications and recertifications, and they could also easily check on their application status. And then lastly, there was a recommendation to strengthen staff training and community outreach. So there would be additional trainings available related to topics such as customer service, and we would do a number of things to improve community outreach, such as additional translation of housing grants documents, creation of some new documents as well to allow for better ease of application and understanding of requirements. So that was a very quick overview. I apologize for the speed with which we covered that. As Nicole mentioned, there is a website available that Courtney will share with you all. It does include the study itself, which is a fairly long document, but we hope that you take a look at it. We will be holding 2 community information sessions, April 3rd and April 4th in the early evening. That will be virtual. The 3rd will be Spanish. The 4th will be English. And we have an email address available if anybody wants to share feedback with us either after this meeting, after the community information sessions, after reading the study. It's hgstudy, STUDY, at arlingtonva.us. And so if you have any questions or feedback, we'd love to hear from you at that email address as well.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we have next on our agenda.
We have Mr. Edwards, discussing the proposed art and star.
I'm sorry, I can't hear.
So our next agenda item is going to be Mr. Edwards from the transportation team to discuss the STAR.
Fare increases.
Yeah, the fare increases. Yeah.
He was. I just saw him.
He's on there.
He's on there in the lower left. There he is.
Oh, you? Okay. I can't see.
Good evening, commissioners. Let me know if you all can see my slide deck.
Yep.
This evening, we are coming to you all to talk about the proposed service and fare changes in the FY25 budget. Of course, the agenda item is originally just the fare changes. However, the fare changes is just one slide. We wanted to also come to you and talk about the proposed service changes for art, along with the fare changes, if that's okay with you all this evening. If not, I can just do the fare changes.
Yeah, that's something.
I'm sorry, Clayton.
Whatever happened to any questions regarding the other?
The housing?
Yeah.
I'll send out the email. They said that you can email them some questions that were pressed for time, and I can send out the email to the.
Oh, no, I mean, there's some things that I wanted to mention. Or at least ask about that I did when they, but since I did when they made the presentation at the Housing Commission, I guess I'll hold off, but if anybody called for questions, I never heard it.
No,
So the system is a problem. If it's not functioning, then it's, ADA issue. So they're gone altogether.
right, they were behind on time. So they just went through the presentation and they provided an email that I'm gonna send out to everybody that they can email them individually for any questions.
Sorry to interrupt you.
No problem at all. Just let me know, would you all like to hear about the proposed service changes and the fare changes, or I can just do the fare changes?
Yeah, I think both would be,
Both.
but yeah.
Okay, because they're coupled together, and when I originally reached out to Courtney last week, I had originally just said the fare changes, but we'll go over both of these. So if you've been following the county manager's FY25 budget proposal that went before the board on the last Saturday of February, on February 22nd, for the Arlington Transit, there are some proposed service changes to some of the fixed route services, along with the fare changes for Star and Art. Last Tuesday, the Department of Environmental Services, where the Arlington Transit falls under, had a board work session on the FY25 budget and brought all the proposed changes to the board so they could ask questions. So as you all are aware and familiar with this budget process, this is an ongoing process with a public engagement opportunities during the month of April before the budget gets voted on the 20th of April. So I will just move directly into these changes. What you'll see here on this very first recommended service change is on the Route 53. There where and let me take my laser pointer. Here, this line here is pointing to the western part of the Route 53, where the laser pointer is. Just to give you a couple of the service characteristics of the existing Route 53. The Route 53 is part of the secondary transit network, and it connects Boston Marymount University Metro Rail Station to the East Falls Church Metro Station with Westover and other neighborhoods in North Arlington. Currently, this route, for those of you that are familiar with it, it operates peak-only service in the AM peak and the PM peak, Monday through Friday, 6 to 9:14 a.m. and 2:35 to 7:39. The bus operates every 25 minutes during these times. And of course, this route, as it currently stands, serves East Falls Church, Washington and Liberty High School, the Virginia Tech Research Center, and Marymount University. So the first portion of the 53 change is right here, the elimination of the western portion of the Route 53. Moving on to the next recommendation.
Can I ask, are you eliminating the western portion of the route?
Yes, ma'am, that is the recommendation. This give you a little bit more background on the budget. Budget revenues did not come in as projected, and so all departments countywide were asked to put up a set of reductions across all departments. And so these were part of the recommendations that were taken forward to the board from the Transit Bureau.
The other thing I want to ask is, what is the arterial that you take to, what is the main road that you're taking to get out to East Falls Church? Currently, what the route goes out?
Give me 1 second here. The main road on the 53 is we take Quincy to Military and then Glebe. So that portion that is That goes down Glebe to Williamsburg to North Sycamore is what is being proposed for elimination. The second recommendation is on the Route 61. The Route 61 currently provides a north-south connection across the Roslyn Courthouse area and the neighborhoods to the north and south of the corridor. Of course, this route serves the Fort Myer and Randall Heights neighborhoods, weekdays, peak periods only. What you'll see here is that the northern portion is showing as eliminated. What you'll see further in the recommendations, the southern portion of the 61, south of Rosalind, that's going to be absorbed into the new combination 5361 route, what we'll get to momentarily. All right. So the next half of the 53, of course, the 53 currently ends here at Boston MU Metro Rail Station. This next part of the recommendation is to then take the 53 and extend it down the Clarendon Wilson Boulevards to pick up the southern portion of the 61. So what the 53-61 combo will then be the southern portion of the 61, capture this portion of the 62, which we'll talk about, hit Boston, head back north to the existing 53, do this circle, and then come back down. The next portion of this is unfortunately, the total elimination of the Route 62. We've been referring to this as the graduate student or high school student as a graduate. You can see it looks like a student with a graduation cap on. Of course, the existing characteristics of the Route 62 is that it's part of the secondary transit network. It connects Boston and the courthouse along Lorcom Lane with weekday peak service only, Monday through Friday. Buses operate every 30 to 45 minutes between 6:30 and 9:30 in the morning and 3 and 7:30 in the evening. And this route also serves Washington and Liberty High School. So I will now show all of them visually together. And the next graphic you will see shows this in a different way. So this basically shows the three eliminations on the western part of the 53, the total elimination of the 61, the 53 being extended to capture the southern portion of the 61, and then the total elimination of the 62. On this graphic here to the left, you see all of the proposed changes. Those changes in red to the left, where it says Art 53, are where the eliminations are happening. So here, the 62 here, and then the northern part of the 61. And then this line represents what will be existing. So the other side of this graphic just shows it just with what will be the new existing. So this graph, you can see the western portion of the 53 is no longer there. There is no 62 here in the middle, and the northern portion of the 61 is gone. So the new route will be the southern portion of the 61, down the Wilson Clarendon Boulevard, back up as the 53 currently travels. Any question on this proposed future route coverage?
I do.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I mean, if anybody else already has, like, wait, but what I wanted to ask is, right now there's a docket of potential changes to Metro bus service as well. So what I'm curious about is the changes that you guys are going to make are any of the places where you're eliminating service or reducing service served by Metro bus. I guess,
yes.
if there's any other, I mean, what I'm asking is, would Metro Bus be an alternative? And/or are any of these routes that you're going to be cutting also having their Metro Bus service cut, therefore affecting people with disabilities who might have to go farther to get a bus, and/or who might have their Metro Access service curtailed because you, as a partner transit provider run by a locality, will no longer be running there, you know what I'm saying? Is there a
Yes.
double jeopardy here?
So that's an outstanding question. I will cover that a little bit later in the presentation. What we have to do anytime we make a change is that we have to do a Title VI equity and disparate impact analysis, just looking at low income and minority populations. And if we make a change that impacts them, it does or does not impact them as part of our Title VI analysis, as part of the Civil Rights Act, we have to show some level of mitigation strategies. And to what you were saying, some of the mitigation strategies for some of these route reductions are Metro Bus routes that are currently proposed to stay in the network. So if there is, like for instance, on the 62, the portion of that runs right through Langston Boulevard. So one of our mitigation strategies would be utilizing either the ART 55 or the Metro Bus service on Langston Boulevard. So that was a great question.
So if the 3 is cut, then there will be people stranded.
I can get into that momentarily. So
this came up last night at a WMATA meeting regarding, cuts in services and how also Metro Access will be affected. That's why I'm asking. That's why the meeting.
And here, just before I get to that, when we looked at the performance metrics of these 3 routes where they're being modified or eliminated, the 53, 61, and 62, we're looking at weekday passengers per revenue hour and weekday passengers per revenue mile. They all ranked in the bottom quadrant of our routes. You can see their ranks there. The route 62, if you're looking at passengers per revenue hour, ranked 16 out of the 16 routes. And so these performance metrics allowed us to be able to justify being able to make these reductions given the budgetary constraints that the county is moving forward into fiscal year 2025. And to what you were speaking of, our proposed service changes, the Title VI results. So with Title VI, give me 1 second as I just advance my physical slides. Of course, Arlington Transit, as we always say, is committed to providing non-discriminatory transportation services to all of its passengers and potential passengers. ART and STAR operates its programs and services without regard to race, color, and national origin in accordance with the Title VI of the Civil Rights Act. What you will see here, and there's a lot here on this slide, it talks about basically the county having to do a Title VI analysis comparing the 2 analyses, the disparate impact, which looks at minority riders and non-minority riders to the left, and then the disproportionate burden to the right. When we are talking about disparate impact, we have to first take the Arlington County average of the minority population as the baseline. The county minority population average is 39.8%. So what we had to do on a route by route basis is had to look at how much of the route actually goes into minority populations. For each of these routes, Route 53 is 0.7%, 61 is 4.2, and Route 62 is 0.7. So with that, since the percent of the route that actually is in these minority populations, this would be found that in this analysis, there is no disparate impact for minority and non-minority riders. Moving over to the disproportionate burden, which occurs when the difference between low-income riders and non-low-income riders affected by a proposed service change or fare is greater than 10% or greater. The low-income population as a percentage of the total population in Arlington County is 16.7%. On Route 53, the low-income population that the Route 53 travels through is 20%, which is above the average. However, we do a disproportionate burden for the Title VI policy if it's 10% or greater. So the 53 is in 20% of low-income population. So although it's above the average, it's not greater than 10%. So there's no impact there. Same with the route, let me see, the Route 62. Okay, still no disproportionate burden there. However, with the Route 61, there's a 39.9% of the route travels in low-income population, which makes the difference 23.2%, which is greater than the 10%. So there is a disproportionate burden there. How we were able to mitigate that, as we were covering earlier, is that there with the Route 61, most of the route's alignment is within walking distance of the existing Arlington Transit routes 43, 45, and 55. So although there is a disproportionate burden for that 61, the mitigating factors that we were able to identify was those 3 routes that are within walking distance. I know that I said a whole lot there, and there's a lot here on the slide to digest. So any questions on this Title VI, the results of this Title VI analysis?
Oh, one question. I just wanted to clarify the disparate impact and disproportionate. Well, the disparate impact, that calculation is if their primary residence is along that route, correct?
That is correct, yes.
Did the county consider any impact to workers who may provide home care services and don't have like a company vehicle to ensure that they're able to access their jobs?
That is not a part of the actual Title VI analysis. Our Title VI analysis requires us to do the disparate impact and the disproportionate burden based on the block groups provided by the census.
Okay. And the equity resolution didn't require that?
The equity resolution, that's a great question. I'd have to get back to you on that. As far as looking at the equity resolution, I know that before any cuts or any reductions in services, there was actually a slide about equity when the director gave his presentation to the board last Tuesday. However, I'd have to look at that, but I know that we looked at all of the reductions in services from an equity lens as well.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome. Final 2 slides. Finally, of course, once again, due to operational costs and to align with the changes at WMATA, and as part of the proposed FY 2025 county operating budget, the county board will be considering the adoption of fare increases for ART and STAR commensurate with the WMATA increase. I know you all are familiar with WMATA and their doings. What they have done is that they had originally proposed a up to 25% fare increase. What they have now advertised is a 12.5% increase with an anticipated adoption with the WMATA FY25 budget on April 25th, 2024. What that means for ART fixed route service is that the base fare would increase 12.5% from $2 to $2.25. Senior citizens and persons with disabilities would go from $1 to $1.15. However, just note that the 1 to 115 was rounded up to the nearest nickel because it would be 1 to $1.13. The proposed 12.5% star fare increases for zone 1 would go from 4 to 450, zone 2 550 to 620, and zone 3 would go from 950 to 1070. Know that fare increase is very germane to those users of the star service, primarily why we wanted to come here tonight to discuss this with you all as this goes through the county manager processes and through the next steps to being looked at and reviewed by the county board. That's my last slide. And did you all have any questions on the fare increase portion of this?
So Doris has a question.
Go ahead, Doris.
Okay, so should the WMATA have to go to the cuts that are now in the most recent budget estimates of the cuts they'll make and also the fare increases? So I have a couple questions. One is, if between our bus changes in service and between Metro bus changes in services, and I don't think they're proposing any changes in operating hours or closures of stations in Arlington, correct? Was one of them supposed to be East Falls Church or not?
I don't recall any in Arlington being on their list of, because they had their original list, if you remember, from December was 90 some stations. They've pared that back some at this point.
Question that I asked last night that they're still considering is, what happens? Are they going to still honor Metro Access service for where Metro bus service has been, cut or has changes in hours and days and hours of operation? Are they still going to honor the service area? Because what they're talking about now is there could be changes in the Metro Access service area,
Mm-hmm.
and based both on cuts in services and or in days and times of operation, and so I asked about partner jurisdiction service like Connector and ART and Dash. So they said they were going to honor it if the partner system still has, they're going to honor trips to that portion of the service area. But if you all eliminate service and change it and they do it too, then it's possible they're going to be dead zones, and I don't think that they've decided what they're going to do about it. So that's where the response I got from Mr. Blake indicated they haven't decided on all that quite yet, and I'm concerned about Arlingtonians being left in the cold. We know people in Fairfax County are going to be left in the cold, but I am worried about that, and then likewise, I'm concerned about having the service cut, but while at the same time increasing star fares, which are higher than Metro Access fares.
Have a dinner.
Yeah, I mean, no, because you all have because Metro Access last July went to the flat fare. And the flat fare, of course, is $4, but it'll go up to $5 generally if they get into, drastic budget problems. So I guess I want to express the concern about increasing star fares and the reaction of the community when service might be cut. Just presented it. I don't know whether you have any response, or I guess we have to see what's going to happen. But
And similar to this slide, a lot of it is going to depend on how WMATA moves forward. What they originally put out with budget, additional funding has come available. So they've reduced some of those budget changes that they had originally proposed. We haven't had a discussion with them directly about the service area as far as what service area Metro Access will remain, depending on how they do their service cuts and reductions.
this is the first time it was brought up, and he said there are no decisions until 2 to 4 weeks from now. And I know, they haven't, they're at the very beginning of figuring all that out. But the last question I guess I had for you was do you have any idea, because they couldn't tell me this down there about any of the local jurisdictions here in Northern Virginia, but do you have any idea whether what the Arlington County Board has put into its proposed budget for the WMATA operating subsidy is what WMATA has said they need from our local jurisdiction here in Arlington, or is it less than that, or more than that? Is all of this going to add up to the amount that they need so they don't have to go into these drastic budget cuts? And so I'm asking you the question basically from what you know about what Arlington County has proposed. Is it less than the subsidy we've been giving in years past? Is it more? Does it meet what Arlington needs to meet to be contributing to a full funding of WMATA?
Mm-hmm. As far as a comparison of the funding levels over the years, I don't have that information readily available. All I do know right now is that they've been able to get additional funding from other jurisdictions to be able to reduce their original budget hole of $750 million. I don't know what the number is down to now, but I know it's taken a drastic reduction since the end of last year. But as far as comparing the Arlington subsidy over the past few years in comparison to what WMATA's need is, I don't have that analysis right in front of me.
Yeah, don't worry, I'll be asking this question of Fairfax County for sure. And Alexandria. So, but I know that all of us who are serving on the WMATA Accessibility Advisory Committee are asking that, and we've also been down in Richmond to shake the bushes. So, we're all concerned about the people up here in Northern Virginia being able to get to where they need to, and all the people with disabilities, and both using fixed route and ADA paratransit.
Commissioner Ray, if you can solve this WMATA funding quagmire, you may become the new GM of WMATA, because it's an annual back and forth, and it's an annual thing. And so at some point, we as a region will be able to figure out how to fund WMATA at sustainable levels, that we don't have we don't receive a doomsday scenario going into the Christmas holiday.
Yeah.
Annually.
Mr. Edwards, this is Commissioner Karen. I had another question. So we understand that the STAR contract is being recompeted. So what's the current schedule? That's the first question. And then what do you anticipate as impact on service and fares based on the awardee?
The current schedule, when I guess I'll start with the increase in fare due to an additional increase in operating cost, that would of course have an impact on the whomever were to become the next provider of the services, just because of an increased fare. Of course, when you're looking at how fares change and how fares increase and it has an effect on ridership, it could negatively impact ridership, which would give them a different product than they thought they were getting, because ridership could possibly, with a fixed route and specialized transportation change, there's a certain elasticity before it bends too much that you start losing passengers. So this proposed fare change, the existing and future contractors, this is something that will have to be cognizant of as they look at staffing levels, the number of vehicles and things. We can do some elasticity modeling, but if this proposed fare change were to go into effect, we can only do a modeling on the ridership. There's no prediction on what human behavior will become, especially with the STAR showing these increases, but then Metro Access remaining at their base fare is $4, I believe, for any trip that they implemented last budget cycle. So there would be a trade-off that some people prefer STAR, some people prefer Metro Access, but this proposed increase in fare could shift the balance. So it really depends on users' personal preference. And as far as a schedule, of course, the existing STAR contracts for the providers expires on May 31st. We don't have any updated schedule at this point. Since it's, and I know we've talked about this, but we talked about this on January 31st when we were at the open house. Since it's an active procurement, it's very limited to none what I can share at this time until it actually goes out into open for the public so that contractors can actually bid on it.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I think that's all the questions from us. Thank you so much for your presentation. And
you're absolutely welcome. Thank you all very much for having me, and have a great evening.
Thank you. You too.
You too.
Bye.
I think it's just the commission business thing.
Liaison reports.
Oh, do we need to approve our minutes?
Yeah,
We have to have court.
That's right. That's right. I forgot.
but we're still missing the edits for January. And then also part of the staff liaison report, you'll be receiving a series of notifications because it was approved to have the meeting moved to Monday. So I'll send out some invites for Monday, effective April. So you'll get some meeting invites.
Did you get that, Doris?
No, I can't hear a thing that anybody.
So we don't have a quorum, so we can't approve our minutes tonight.
So, okay.
And then Courtney was just reminding us that beginning April, our meetings will be moved to the third Monday of the month to accommodate Alexa's new job, so she can also be our chair.
And then also January edits.
I'm
are still
sorry,
pending.
Billy, you need to.
Then January,
She need, you're all right.
Yeah.
Or do you need, I think you need to ask them a question about whether the sound can be augmented, especially in this room, by using mics. I mean, I had to ask that at work too, so I don't know what the thing is. I know this has been more problematic than room 216. I haven't had it not work in there.
And then also January's 29th meeting minutes, I'm still missing the edits. So if you have a chance, you can send me your edits. You wanted to add something to the minutes for January's meeting minutes. Doris? I think you had some edits that you wanted me to add in there and that you would send them.
I'm sorry?
The 29th, January 9th, 29th meeting minutes, you had some edits that you wanted to add.
I'm not sure. Remember, I couldn't read them this afternoon. Maybe the problem with that I was having that I think is with that computer at work, because I've never had that. I think I tried to open something and it was preventing me thereafter from opening anything that was Word.
Okay, I didn't send January 29th because you had already reviewed and it was approved. It was approved with the amendments of the edits. Because you said that you wanted, it was approved, but you wanted to send the edits for January's meeting minutes. So you had already reviewed them.
Oh.
I can follow up with you.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know. I've also had a personal.
Next.
Yeah, maybe I didn't even get them to you. I can't.
Next is the chair's report, so you can skip that.
That was, we passed them and, but it was with my edits, right?
Right.
Yeah, so I'll go look after.
Okay, no worries, no worries. Next is the chair's report. She's not here, so. Next is the site plan review report from Doris.
and for the committee.
Committee.
Doris, is there any updates from site plan review committee?
Yeah, there was a site plan review committee the other night on building that's being built at 24th and Crystal Drive called Crystal Block W. Block W. And they only got to reviewing the first couple of topics in the usual format for site plan reviews. So they were the massing and architecture of the building, but it didn't afford yet the opportunity to ask about the number of accessible units and accessible common areas and such at this point. The second meeting of this site plan review will do that. I did sit in on, but I'm not reporting on the Barcroft thing. There really weren't other site plan reviews. I don't think I missed any yet, but there's some coming up. And why don't you want me to go on to the Housing Commission? Basically, the report for the Housing Commission is they consider the county budget for housing. What's proposed in the county budget for committed affordable units and the affordable housing investment fund. Basically, they need more money to complete more projects and units. And then also they had the same presentation that we just had on the housing grant study and where it is in process. And then they also are concerned about fair housing enforcement as well as enforcement of code violations, and making certain that there are sufficient county resources in code enforcement that doesn't make that prevents things like the Serrano apartment violations happening again in older units, in older complexes that are being used for preservation of affordable market rate units. And the last thing that really applies, especially to us and the county budget, was that they are trying, the Housing Commission will be testifying, trying to get the budget for the Office on Human Rights increased to ensure there's adequate testing annually, because there isn't, for various provisions of the Fair Housing Act, and discrimination on the basis of race and ethnicity, but also they join us in wanting to see annual testing, and not once every 3 years, which has been the procedure. Annual testing for access to ensure that the developments that are built are compliant with Fair Housing Act standards, and catching violations of fair housing as well as the other accessibility requirements in our state building code, but are caught within the 2-year limit for catching those violations, which is set by the Mosiki ruling that was actually came down out of court here in Northern Virginia. And because if they don't catch it within 2 years, the person with a disability finds that violation will be stuck with paying for reasonable modifications to their units or to even common areas that aren't caught within 2 years of the opening of the building, basically, as a new project, as a new construction. So the Housing Commission fully supports that, and as well, I hope we're supporting the whole package of increasing the annual testing for discrimination in protected categories. So that was basically the majority of what the House just passed.
Yep. Doris, would you like to provide a WMATA update as well?
Well, basically, at all 3 meetings this month, they talked about, and last month, they talked about the WMATA budget, the doomsday budget, and they were especially interested up until the General Assembly ended on March 9 in what was going to happen with WMATA funding. And you may have read this in the newspapers and whatever, but a bill sponsored by Delegate Sickles from Fairfax County here in Northern Virginia did get through and stay in the budget and was adopted by the full General Assembly. And now the question is going to be whether the governor will mess with that funding or stay away from it and let it go through. And decisions will not be made until April 17, which is the annual governor's veto session of the General Assembly. So hopefully he will not do that. So that the WMATA people have been very interested in that. And then last night, they had their Metro Access Subcommittee meeting, and this is when they started talking about, well, a week ago, they started talking about cuts, the docket of cuts and such. And of course, they had the budget hearing all over Northern Virginia. Well, they had the budget hearing here for Northern Virginia, one in Silver Spring, and for the entire Maryland area, and then one downtown in the district, one virtual. The fourth hearing was virtual. We had at least WMATA, the members of the WMATA AAC felt that we had a good standing. I would have liked to have seen even more, but here people testifying in favor of not a full funding for the WMATA budget. And that's why I asked this question here. Because the next action is going to be at local budget hearings. And then last night, they informed us about some real life scenarios that could be activated if they don't get enough funding with regard to reducing the service area, given certain policies that have been in place for a long time at WMATA, how they were trigger reducing the Metro Access service area if needed. And I think that probably they are less interested in reducing the Metro Access service area and would rather be doing the cuts out there on the fixed route, which I don't necessarily agree with as a fixed user, but they don't want to do any of it. That's why it's important when we go into the budget hearings here. It's the 2nd, is that right? The 2nd or the 4th of April? The budget hearing?
I think it's the 2nd.
I think it's the 2nd and the one in Fairfax is the 4th. But so they it's really important to get people out of those budget hearings, both to ensure that Metro bus and Metro rail service isn't eliminated or curtailed in some way that will affect our citizens, but also because if they did that, there is a likely direct impact on Metro Access service, and it's important for us to make sure that that doesn't, happen or be reinforced by cuts that get triggered in star shares.
Yep.
That's basically it.
And then I did confirm the public hearing for the budget itself is April 2nd at 7 p.m. And then the tax rate public hearing will be Thursday, April 4th at 7 p.m.
It would be what for the
Tax rate,
real estate?
Yeah.
Right, yeah.
that'll be April 4th.
So I don't know whether it matters to this commission and whether people are talking about it in another commission that at least as far as transportation is concerned, and maybe for other needs in the budget, including the housing budget, that if the solution is to raise the real estate rate in order to be able to pay for essential services that people with disabilities need. I don't know whether this commission wants to say that or not. Just throw it on the table.
It's $1 million question.
Well, if you can't get to work,
Yes, true.
and a lot of people are working jobs that aren't regular peak service.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
And Brian, you asked a very good question about like home health aides and healthcare providers, some of those crowd
Yeah.
areas.
Yeah.
Very good question. They're not part of the Title VI consideration, but that's an important consideration, thinking about who goes in and out of those neighborhoods for caregiving.
Yeah. And then, undocumented individuals who also provide, house cleaning services and other.
Right,
Yeah.
landscaping.
Yeah. I'm personally being affected by the bus Route 61 change. Because, that's the way I get to the metro, or I have to do a 20-minute walk, and sometimes
That's a long
my legs don't want to do it. And unfortunately, work doesn't cover lips into the city, so I will certainly be giving my voice to the county board.
Right.
Alrighty, and I know Alexa is out, so Karen, did you have an update on Barcroft?
I do.
All right.
I have attended 2 of these meetings, and I think it was Doris that asked a very good question. What is the purpose of this expanded working group for Barcroft? So they're calling it the Expanded Form-Based Code Advisory Working Group. That is such a mouthful, right?
Mhm.
So because this project is so large in so many respects, this period, we started February 7th, and then it ends May 13. The purpose of these working groups is to make sure that the approximately 30 stakeholder groups can look at these plans and provide input.
Mhm.
My general observation, I went to the kickoff and now have been to the first 2 meetings. My general observation is the meetings are very well organized, but when you ask very specific questions, numbers of accessible units or changes made to, say, sidewalks, because there's a lot of grade differences on the site, that what I've heard is, well, that will come after May 13th. So it's interesting. So I'll just give a recap of the first meeting. So the first meeting was February 26th. We looked at conservation area limits and redevelopment areas. So existing buildings, courtyards, and talking about new construction. So I think the numbers that are really telling are, right now there's 1,335 units. And they're all gonna remain affordable, but they're going to add 2,000 to 2,500 new units. This is quite a massive site. And in terms of items of interest for our committee, they're going to phase the renovation of the historic properties. And they've started phase 1 of the garden apartments. There will be no changes made to make those revisions accessible. When they start phase 2 starts in early 2025. They said that they would make 6 of those ground floor units accessible. That's kind of a long time to wait. And they did also indicate that out of the 2,000 to 2,500 new units, that at least 10% of those new units would be accessible. So that, I think that was important for us. So that was really the substance of the first working group meeting. The second working group meeting, which was March 11th, was multimodal transportation, network, and parking. So site layout, building footprints, and infrastructure. And it's my observation, the biking community was out in full force. There was a lot of input about biking and putting the pieces together through and around that complex for bikers. And they've gone back to the county, Gerald Lynch, and asked for some changes to make 12th Street kind of the premier street through the complex, because they identified some challenges with the grade with 11th Street. And so, because some of the, I didn't realize this personally, I knew it a little bit walking around there, but there's very, very, very steep grade changes.
Oh, yeah.
Very steep. And they even said, so they want to throughout smooth out steps and severe grade changes. So they were saying, for example, there's up to 60 to 70% grade change in some of the area. So that's really a big concern for accessibility, to be able to do something about that. When I asked specifics about plans for sidewalks, for audible signals for crossing streets, etc., they said, well, we're going to talk about this after May 13th. So there weren't a whole lot of specifics, but there was a long discussion about smoothing out some of the challenges with the grade, and that as they move through the phases after May 13th, we would hear of the community. There would be an opportunity to comment on different parts of the projects, on some of the pedestrian walkways. So it would be accessibility on that. And there was the representative from the Columbia Forest Neighborhood Association that did make the point that in addition to the accessible units, if they're going all into the new construction, what's going to happen with parking? So is the parking going to be underground? Is the parking going to be surface? So there were questions around the parking and accessibility. So my observation is this has been very, very general and not a lot of specifics. So Doris, I don't know which meeting you attended. I don't know what I missed.
Well, I think one of the big things here, the first phase is not going to have any accessible
No.
units, or they aren't renovating apartments to be accessible, because they are located in an area in the Barcroft property that the buildings are, number one, grandfathered in, but number two, it's infeasible to be able to create units that one can enter and egress from with any accessible pathway. And,
Right.
They've said that at the Housing Commission. And I think we may have said it in the bar meeting as well.
And Doris, the next meeting, April 1st, we are going to talk about public open space and natural areas, including like walkways.
So, but their commitment to 10% of all the new construction units being fully accessible type A units with roll-in showers is very important. And it's what how the housing department and the housing commission trying to, and the planning commission for that matter, has been trying to ensure in all new construction. So that part is really excellent. And yeah, the transportation thing, the streetscapes really be important down there.
And so I am able to attend the April 1st meeting, but I am going to be out of country for the April 22nd committee. If somebody else wants to, because we can have one official representative and more than one person. So Doris, if you're able, or somebody else on the commission wants to attend, but I'll put it in writing to send it to everybody in Courtney, just so that there's plenty of time to plan. Brian, I had just a quick one additional item, if I may. So I was able to attend yesterday, the Arlington Area Agency on Aging had their 2024 Community Engagement Forum. And so I was actually able to attend that.
Did you go to that?
I did.
Yeah, because I was going to come, but I had a personal emergency of doctor.
So I was able to attend. So I was able to attend in person at Lubber Run. They had a couple of virtual sites, including Culpeper Garden. And I forget what the other one was. It was well attended and did not see an ASL interpreter on screen or in my room. But it was well attended. And the keynote speaker was actually from AARP. So Rodney Harrell, he spoke about livable communities and AARP's goal to increase affordable and accessible housing. So that was a good part of it. And there was a quick presentation on the age-friendly Arlington 5-year plan, 2018 to 2023. And then they broke us up into 3 breakout rooms. It was somewhat chaotic. I personally didn't think well organized. And we were asked questions to comment about how we find Arlington as a place for people aging, what are our primary concerns, issues. And they did not get through all the questions in my group, but the results of the feedback from the 3 groups, they said, are going to be used to form the next 5-year plan for building an age-friendly community. It was well attended.
Thank you for that.
And they had a lovely graphic, but unfortunately it's absolutely inaccessible via a screen reader, which is no surprise to anyone here in this room. But it's a infographic about Arlington for older adults. And then it gave the AARP livability score a total score of 66. In housing, our score was 46%, mainly because of cost. Our transportation score was 73%. Our health and wellness score was 81%. Community engagement score was 80%. But beautiful graphic, but it's an embedded graphic and there's no way to have a screen reader.
And which department was that? provided by?
Arlington Agency on Aging. Yeah, there were a lot of county staff, like very well organized, very well planned.
Well, I know we asked for an accessibility coordinator in the budget, so hopefully next year.
It's just,
Yeah.
these are wonderful statistics, right?
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
they're not accessible to people that could use this information for purposes of advocacy.
Yeah, and there are resources that we could highlight. I know the federal government has extensive resources on making accessible.
Yes, that was my
documents.
life, yes.
Yes. I use it in my day-to-day job, so maybe we can consider writing a letter to the county manager highlighting those resources so that he could provide it in all staff email. So, it might just be, staff don't know the resources there, and happy to send a reminder.
Well, Doris spotlighted that because there was a doodle poll
Mhm.
about us prioritizing prioritizing dates availability for a meeting. And it's generally not accessible.
Other than that, I think that's all for our agenda. So as a reminder, and just to confirm with you, Courtney, we are meeting Monday, April 22nd,
15th,
the 15th.
the 15th,
And-
yeah.
Sorry, my brain did not register that first week. So April 15th, which is also tax day, so.
Oh, yes, and I will not be here.
Alrighty. Other than that,
Unless they give some kind of extension.
yeah, unless you, yes, unless you apply for extension. Other than that, there's no other items before the board. I call us to an end.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Sounds good. Yes.
No problem. Y'all next month.
In 2 months.
Oh, yeah, in 2 months. See you.